Hello everyone, this is Lewis with HeroBanker.com, here with a weekly news update in the world of finance and the economy. Over the next few minutes, we'll discuss Tuesday's inflation report, Wednesday's Fed decision, and if we're still headed towards a recession. First up, on Tuesday, we received the most recent CPI report on inflation. This report showed that prices rose 4% compared to May of 2022. This number is referred to as year over year, since it compares inflation versus this time last year. This inflation report was significant because 4% is the slowest rise in inflation in over 2 years, since March of 2021. Also, 4% inflation is a far cry from the recent high of 9.1% in June 2022, which was the highest reading in 40 years. Keep in mind, however, that the Fed is currently hiking rates to get inflation back down to 2%, not 4%. On Wednesday, the Fed's 2% mandate was front and center when they chose to pause the current rate hiking cycle. In the Jerome Powell press conference, his opening statement included the language, quote, "We understand the hardship that high inflation is causing, and we remain strongly committed to bringing inflation back down to our 2% goal." A pause at Wednesday's meeting was widely expected, especially after the CPI report on Tuesday. However, before the Wednesday meeting, the path forward remained extremely cloudy. While on Wednesday, Jerome Powell and the Fed did their best to provide some clarity. Powell was quoted as saying that it was, quote, "likely that some further rate increases will be appropriate this year to bring inflation down to 2%. These comments were considered much more aggressive or hawkish than most people expected. Based on those Powell comments and notes from the Fed, it appears that the committee members expect there to be 2 more rate hikes in 2023. Powell even went so far as to say that at this moment, it would not be appropriate to cut rates. So again, the Fed appears to be getting more aggressive or hawkish than most people expected. So while this month's Fed pause was welcomed by many people, the aggressive forward guidance was mostly considered unwelcome and unexpected. So what does this mean going forward for the economy and the possibility of a recession? Well, Tuesday's CPI report probably gave some further support to the belief that the Fed's current rate hiking cycle might finally be working, which in theory should bring prices down and provide relief to consumers. After all, breaking the cycle of high prices is the entire reason that the Fed is on this aggressive rate hiking campaign in the first place. However, if we dig a bit deeper into the inflation numbers, we can see that there's many pockets of the economy where inflation remains stubborn and sticky. Another inflation metric, which is often cited by the Fed, is core PCE. Many people believe that core PCE is a better measure of inflation than CPI. This is because core PCE backs out food and energy, which tend to be more volatile than other segments of the economy. Therefore, core PCE is believed to provide a more granular reading of inflation than CPI. Unfortunately, the core PCE number wasn't quite as impressive as the CPI number. Year over year, core PCE remained elevated at 5.3%. However, 5.3% was trending down from 5.5%, and it's actually the lowest number since November of 2021. One segment of the economy that remains stubborn is the price of housing. Housing is typically the average person's biggest expense. Therefore, when housing prices remain high, that can make it difficult to tackle inflation. Another segment that remains elevated is used auto prices. Tuesday's inflation report probably had a little something for everyone. If you're a dove who thinks that the Fed should pause rate hikes, then you can point to the CPI number. If you're a hawk who thinks that the Fed should continue to raise rates, then you can point to the core PCE number. It's very difficult to get a read on this economy and what might happen next. Therefore, even the best economists and pundits disagree on the path forward. This economy appears to have a yin for every yang. For example, you can say that consumer spending remains strong, but then you can also say that credit card balances are going up and consumer savings are going down. Or you can say that we're seeing more layoffs, but you can also say that overall, the labor market remains strong. So again, a lot of uncertainty remains about this economy, rate hikes, inflation, and recession. The Fed's next meeting will be next month in July. Based on the comments by Powell and the Fed, it appears that a rate hike is likely. The CME FedWatch tool is currently pricing in a 72% chance of a rate hike at the July meeting. However, there's many people who disagree with this sentiment. This camp believes that inflation will come down quicker than the Fed expects, and that this will force the Fed to cut rates sooner than expected, maybe even this year. Even the CME FedWatch tool has recently priced in high odds of a rate cut this year. But after the Wednesday Fed meeting, the chances of a rate cut this year now only sit at 5%. Between now and the next meeting, we'll continue to monitor economic conditions and keep you updated on any developments. If there's any questions, please ask us in the comments below, and we're happy to answer them. We can also be reached on our Instagram page, website, or info@herobanker.com. Thank you for taking time out of your day so that we can help you become your own financial hero. We hope to see you again soon. If you enjoy the content, we would greatly appreciate a like and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow Hero Banker on social media for updates on banking, finance, the economy, and more. Thank you.